Hi, I'm Kevin, and this is a Kevin's Shop video. Today I'm working on this garbage disposal which I dug out of a neighbor's trash. My plan is to make it into a rock polishing unit because it has the water capacity. It has a seal in the bottom here that keeps water out of the motor. So I thought I'd make a really good rock polisher. So this thing has a soundproofing collar on it which had a couple clips here, and I just cut these clips with side cutters, and this cover will come off. I think I need to remove this too. This is going to come off. This is just a seal that was used against the sink, and then a locking collar. And then this collar will lift off, and it exposes really the base unit of the garbage disposal. So my idea is to cut this top off here, and this appears to be aluminum, but actually it's made out of plastic. So I'm going to use a die grinder, and I'm just going to go around here with a cutting wheel on it and cut this top off. Okay, I was able to cut this off. When I was done cutting it, I left the top of this housing was pretty rough, a lot like this part here. So I took a file and just kind of worked on it and got it kind of evened out and smooth, and then I finished it off with a kind of a sanding block to get this kind of nice and smooth. I decided to take this housing off, and maybe in some cases it's not necessary, but I found that when I removed these long bolts, which I used, this is a 3/16 socket, which seemed to fit them, and I loosened all these 4 long retaining bolts. I went to pry this housing up, but it was really kind of stuck on there, and it was kind of elastic, so it had a little bit of give, and what I did is I just kept going around and made several laps with this straight-bladed screwdriver just to kind of ease it up a little bit at a time, and eventually I was able to separate it from this lower base, and it came off, and that left this old cutting wheel, which you can see I've already kind of worked on some. It was really rusty mess, and the cutters were here, and they were just full of rust, and this nut was just seized. I couldn't turn this at all. So what I did is I ground the side of the nut a little bit just to relieve some of the pressure on it. And then I took some vice grip, turn it, and get it loose, and then it came off. And then this wheel was able to get this wheel off. The next step here is I'm trying to get, this is a rock polishing or a tile polishing kit that I got. It has several different discs of different grits, and I want to mount this to this shaft. This shaft turns out to be a 3/8 fine thread, a 3/8 24 pitch, and this particular polishing disc has a 5/8 11 thread, so I had to come up with a way to mount this on this shaft. I went on the internet and I found this adapter which adapts the 5/8 11 pitch to a 3/8 24 pitch, and my idea was that I could, put this on the shaft and then attach this polishing disc, and then I would be able to use this as a polisher. Unfortunately, it raised the height of this a little too high for me. I wanted to keep this disc a little bit lower than the housing so that when you're using water, it will throw the water into the housing and then drain out this port that's on the side here. So my idea here to get this lower is I'm going to reduce this cut this off. I was thinking about putting it just in the vise, maybe tightening it into a nut or something, and cutting it with a hacksaw. And then my idea was to cut a notch in the top of it in case I need to remove it or hold it while I tighten the disc. It gives me something to grab so that I can work with this threaded piece within another threaded piece. One way to cut the head of this off is to chuck it in a vise. You don't want to damage the thread, so what I've done is I'm using some, these are just masonite pieces of wood that I use to just protect the threads of the adapter so that I can cut it with the hacksaw. And then you could go ahead and just cut it, with a hacksaw back and forth real carefully, not a lot of pressure so that this doesn't get moved or it stays in position so you can get a nice straight cut. Turn the head off of this adapter, and then I've cut a notch in the top of it. And so now I can thread this onto this shaft. Now what the nice thing about these garbage disposals is they have a Allen wrench socket built in the bottom of them. This is designed so that if you ever got a jam, you could put one of these tools in here and break it free. But it's great for working with this because I can lock the shaft, and then it's easy to just turn this adapter down into place. And then I have my 5/8 disc here, which now then screws right down on to the shaft. You can lock that on there. And then now my housing fits down real nicely, and my disc is below the top of the housing so that when it runs, it will sling water into the housing. That's my plan, of course, and then it would drain out the side. Step on this rock polisher, I had to come up with a base for it. So what I did is I took a couple pieces of plywood. This is, I think, about 10.5 inches square. I rounded the corners, and then this is going to be the base plate, and I cut it out so that I could access the bottom of this garbage disposal so that I could use this Allen wrench in here to lock it, or this also has a thermal protector, overload protector in case it jams. This will pop and you have to push that back in to restart the motor. So I wanted to have access to that. And then what I did is I slightly notched out this on one side here, about half the depth of the plywood, and that's so this cord that's in the bottom can run out the back bottom here, and then the motor base itself will sit squarely on this plywood. And then I cut another piece out that fits the outside diameter of this, and I notched it also for the cord. And then I've also put some holes in here. My plan is I took a number 32 hose clamp, and I bent it and drilled some holes in it, and I'm going to use these clamps to clamp down this motor to this base. So this clamp will, this part of the bracket that I bent on this hose clamp will fit like this, so the screw will come through the bottom here, and then I'm going to use these clamps to secure this down to the base. What I've done is I've taken the other part of the hose clamp and I measured up about 1 inch from this nut here, and then I bent it over at a 90-degree angle and drilled a hole in there. And then I also kind of ground it kind of a slight half circle so that it would fit into this side case, so that I would be able to put these mounting bolts down through the side here. And then what I can do then is I can attach this to this hose clamp and clamp down this motor, and I can do it on the four different points that these bolts attach the top housing to the lower motor housing. And then this bolt will go down into the lower housing, and I can tighten that up, and I can do this all the way around, and it'll give me a nice secure way to anchor this motor to this base. So what I've done to lubricate this rock polisher is I've put together this hose line up to a 1-gallon plastic jug, and then the hose runs all the way down to the bottom of the jug so that it can pick up the water. And one thing I do is I make this a hole for the hose tight so the tubing is sealed to the container, and that way I can tighten the cap on the container and squeeze it, and what that does is then forces the water up into the hose and down, And that creates the siphon effect, which keeps the water flowing. And once you get the water flowing, then you can open up this cap and it'll continue to flow. Now, one thing I do to control the flow rate is I've got this little clamp at the hardware store. They use these on ponds to control the flow on small pieces of tubing like this. And you can clamp this down to you get the appropriate rate of water. Right now I have this adjusted to about 1 drop per second. So I've got the rock polisher set up and running. I've got this water flowing, and I put a cup under here, and I'll go ahead and I'll turn it on, and we'll polish a rock. And there's the rock polisher that I made out of a garbage disposal.